Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. It's another great episode of Recruiting Intel with me, Joe Cook, Justin Wells, and Coach Dub. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and head to InsideTexas.com where you can use promo code IT1 and get 2 months of Inside Texas Plus access for $1. It's April 23rd today, so that means that in 2 months it'll be June 23rd. That'll be the tail end of official visits. You're not going to want to miss any info. Today, we are going to go over a bunch of different recruiting storylines that transpired this weekend at the 40 Acres, from transfer portal defensive tackles to Riley Pettijohn talking Texas, and then a little bit of talk about some individual spring game visitors. So, Justin, Charlie, y'all both interacted with recruits over the course of this weekend, and overall, it sounds like the reviews were pretty positive, as they tend to be from a fun event like the spring game.
It was, to me, it was just, I feel like we say this a lot, but there's just a really good vibe around that program and around that stadium with the fans and the players and the coaches, and it's palatable because the recruits feel that they see that, they get into it, they see how much the fans are into it. When fans want to take pictures with recruits, I'm telling you that's kind of a big deal. Those kids love that kind of stuff. But what they really like seeing are young players playing, making an impact on the field, because that tells them what Sark has been selling to them. You're going to get an opportunity to play early and often. And when you see Ryan Wingo as an early enrollee making the impact he has already, other wide receivers pay attention to it. They want to play early. That's just kind of the way it goes. And so, to me, I think it was just a combination of the weather being just right for them to get that spring game in, for them to get the handful of those recruits in, to have a good showing, come out of it unhealthy, healthy rather. But yeah, those kids, some of them were coming back that have been a couple times, a couple of commits coming back with Lance Jackson, Elijah Barnes, a couple signees coming back, Melvin Hills, Nate Kibble, Santana Wilson. They just got a good thing going right now, Joe. And I think the recruits feel that. I think they catch that. They catch that. That's why we always hear them talking about the family atmosphere and kind of how everybody's on the same page. Recruits see kids playing early. They envision themselves. Kobe Black's recruitment started 2.5 years ago when Texas hosted Alabama, because at that point is when he said, I wanted to run down on the field and I could see myself playing for Texas. It's little things like that. And then what Kobe Black do in his first spring game? He gets an interception. And so those little stories start to add up, and then all of a sudden you've got another top 5 class coming.
Charlie, you even got to catch up with some in-state recruits, but you saw an out-of-state recruit. We'll get to him in a little bit, but this is like a great introductory event for Texas football, whether you're making your first visit or your fifth, and that was reflected with some of the people kind of making their first time to the 40 Acres that you were able to talk to.
Yeah, guys who come from out of state or never been to Texas, like actually getting to see it in person, were wild and amazed by it, right? From the facilities to the coaching, level of coaching, so seeing the players compete, how big they were, sizing themselves up against the players. Like, hey, I can see myself, envision myself playing here. Like,
Yeah.
I fit in here, right? That's what you want to see. That's what you want to hear from recruits. Not that they're afraid to come in and compete or anything. Like, hey, I see these guys. They're playing young guys. I can come in and do the exact same thing. And I want to come here. I want to be coached hard. I want to play in this atmosphere. The fans are amazing. Just the whole atmosphere and the vibe was just amazing. And for those first time guys seeing it, it was amazing. And those guys who've been there multiple times, it just kind of confirms what they've been seeing, right? On the multiple visits that they've been there, seeing things come into action that the coaches have been telling them and saying to them for the past couple of months or years of recruiting them. Just seeing that and seeing it in person, seeing a game-like atmosphere, I think it was a great selling point, and good for the coaching staff.
So let's talk about a couple of the players from the portal ranks who were there. One of them was Bill Norton, and we on this channel you can go find it under the live tab. Eric Nalene and I were able to talk about this basically in real time. Big 6'6", 325-pound defensive tackle, and I think the Steve Sarkisian's comments after the game made it clear who they were looking for. We knew that their behaviors indicated that they needed some help at defensive tackle, but Steve Sarkisian made it pretty darn clear, like they are looking for defensive tackles. So more on Norton on this channel, but we do want to talk about a guy who is not going to be coming to Texas. Made a trip, visited with his little brother, and maybe that pays some dividends down the road. But UCLA's Jay Toya visited Texas. We got some. We saw him on the sidelines. He's hard to miss. But late on Monday night, or just around dinner time on the Pacific Coast, he announced he was going to be staying at UCLA instead of transferring out to anywhere, let alone Texas. So, Justin, this makes Dominic Williams' recruitment all the more important, and there's some updates with his recruitment this week as well.
It really does. And this is the carousel of the portal D lineman, where the supply is not going to be able to meet the demand. And, Jay Toya, that's a guy that we had all heard about months ago as a potential kid to hit the portal that could potentially, take some visits. He had that relationship with Johnny Nansen. But at the end of the day, I think people need to also understand that Texas isn't going to get everybody they want. It doesn't work that way. What sometimes will happen is schools and mainly players might use Texas as leverage to get a bigger, better deal at the place where they're going or to stay home. And I think, Toya, I think UCLA probably sweetened the deal a little bit. And so they get to keep him there. But, Dominic Williams is the next one up. And if as good and as much upside as Toya has, I think Dominic Williams is the same. I think if you pair him with a handful of other D linemen like they did with Dylan Horton at TCU, I think that's when he's the most effective. He's another big plugger that can play that 3-tech. He can play the interior D line. He'll be one of those guys for run fits, which I think is tremendous. And he's going to be on campus for the next 2 days. And so, Oklahoma got the first trip. But I when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think sometimes getting the last one is the one that benefits the most. And so Texas has about 48 hours to convince Dominic Williams that they not only need him, but that he would probably be in the rotation day one in Austin.
One of the interesting things about Dominic Williams, his hometown is Torrance, California. You know who else has a hometown in Torrance, California? That'd be Steve Sarkisian. So there's obviously a little bit of – Say again?
The former BYU quarterback?
Yeah, I don't wonder what he's up to these days.
Man,
but hey, anyway, in this transfer portal era, where you can make any sort of connection, that's always a big one. That's going to be part of it there. Charlie, you evaluated some defensive tackle options, maybe I guess a little bit further down the board, and you and I have kind of both noted when discussing that on Inside Texas is like, look, they have these kind of top three. This is where their focus is. If things keep going, maybe they could look at these guys. There are other defensive tackles that Texas looked at. One's from Michigan State. You brought up a guy from North Texas, Philip Bleedy from Indiana, who's been seeing all over the country. He was involved with Texas during his original high school recruitment, but Texas did not get involved on this one. They were pretty selective in what they wanted. And, there's positives to that. You can get good players, but you can also limit your talent pool to, a guy who could go back to UCLA or a guy who's taking visits all over the country. So when you do that, your margin for error is greatly reduced, and you have to make sure you get what you're looking for. Any other, transfer portal notes or anything like that? Those were the two big pieces of news. Any other transfer portal notes, or we want to talk about some of the guys that were here on campus?
I think by the time this goes up, they should check out InsideTexas.com because there could be some more portal information coming out throughout the rest of the day. So this is one of those times when we tell you to go to InsideTexas.com, you really need to go to InsideTexas.com.
So we'll keep it going. We'll talk about some of the guys who were on campus, and we have to start with Riley Pettijohn. He made his way over to the 40 acres. He's been getting the hard sell from Texas commit Elijah Barnes. Of course, probably getting the hard sell from Johnny Nansen and Xavier Filsaime, his high school teammate on the 40 acres. And Inside Texas was able to catch up with Mr. Pettijohn. Here's what he had to say just outside of Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium.
What's it like being back here in Austin for the spring game and getting to kind of catch up with the coaches and the players?
It feels good to be back. I'm just ready to see what they have going in the spring game today.
Hey, Elijah Bo Barnes, he jumped in the class a little early. I know you guys talk a little bit. Has he reached out to you and said anything? Are those guys pushing a little bit?
Oh, yes, sir. They're pushing a little bit.
Well, good. You've got some official visits coming up. Who do you have on the docket?
Ohio State, Texas, and USC right now.
USC. Are you still kind of looking at maybe a post-visit decision, July, August, maybe before your senior year? What's that looking like?
Yes, sir. I'm definitely gonna make a decision before my senior year.
What are you looking at today? Are you going to be watching linebacker play? Are you going to be watching anything specific?
Yes, sir. I'm definitely gonna be watching the linebackers and the D-line. I know the D-line go perform good, but I just want to see how Coach Nansen has developed the players since he's been here and see how he's improved their game.
There you go. Is there any one player in particular that you kind of watch, maybe an Anthony Hill, a Maurice Blackwell, some of those DFW cats?
Yes, sir. Anthony Hill.
Thank you for that one, Justin. And I think we caught up with him a little bit after. And Texas coach is in a really good position for Pettijohn. Of course, those visits to USC and Ohio State do loom. USC, as with a bunch of new defensive coaches, seemingly has created some momentum on the trail. But you obviously like where Texas is in this one based off your RPM pick, correct?
Yeah, definitely, man. I like, Riley Pettijohn in Texas. Him and Elijah Barnes together, I think it just makes sense, right? Surprisingly, like both those guys can run. They posted great track times in the 100. Size-wise, we heard from Riley's dad, he's up to 220 now, right? So, like, he has the size already. It seems like the perfect match, the perfect marriage. Him and Texas just makes sense at this point. Like I said, he has to take his visits, so we'll see. But I like him in Texas a lot.
Justin, anything to add on this recruitment?
No, to be honest with you, I was fortunate enough to catch up with Riley and his family before he walked into the facility, and I really got to talk to his dad, who's just tremendous, former football player at Syracuse. So he's gone through a lot of this, and this guy knows what he's talking about, and I think that's why Riley's so level-headed. But I'll be honest, Coach Williams has been on this recruitment from the start, and so much of my info is basically piggybacking off of his. So anything that Coach Williams says about Riley, that's the one you want to cash and take to the bank. I was just lucky enough to catch him coming into the facility and catching up with the parents. And I wouldn't say it's so like 100% pro Texas, but boy, the horns look really good to that family right now.
We'll talk. We'll close it out with some talk about some of the visitors that made it into the spring game, a few high-profile ones. One of them is 2025 Duncanville quarterback Keelon Russell. And if you looked at the sidelines at Texas, you saw KJ Lacey, the Texas 2025 current quarterback commit. His little brother made the trip. Dad may have made the trip, so the whole Lacey crew was out. But Keelon Russell, Duncanville's quarterback, helped them to state championship this past year, currently committed to SMU. But Texas brought him in for the spring game. He did not leave with an offer to my knowledge. But this is an interesting, I don't want to say wrench, but an interesting step in this whole recruiting cycle. Justin, what did you gather about Russell's visit to Texas?
Yeah, here's the thing about Keelon Russell. Like, there's a story we're kind of following, and it's Texas going to take two quarterbacks in 2025. I think optimally, Sark would rather have it a one quarterback class each time. But with Quinn Ewers headed to the NFL next year, there's only two scholarship quarterbacks on the roster starting in January, and so that's the possibility is there. Not to mention KJ Lacey still takes visits. He still, hangs around with Auburn and talks to Alabama and Ole Miss. And so this is really Sark just doing his due diligence. Him and A.J. Milwee are constantly reevaluating quarterbacks. The big thing here is that he wasn't able to come to the spring game. He actually ran in the regionals with Duncanville and fellow target DeCorian Moore. But he made an effort to come the next day and get some one-on-one time and go through and talk to the coaches and see things. And after catching up with Keelon after that visit, it's clear that, he did not get an offer, but that's not a deterrent. Like, he is very, very interested. I think he's just weighing his options right now, Joe. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe the last month rather, there's a lot of schools jumping in. Florida has thrown, it's fishing there. Ole Miss is trying to get into the mix. And all I can tell you right now is Rhett Lashley better hang on tight, because Keelon Russell's exposure is growing, and his talent is becoming more and more aware with each camp, with each visit, with each practice. And so I just think it's something Texas fans need to follow. This could be a 2 quarterback class just out of necessity alone. I think Russell may have a little bit more upside, but I think KJ Lacey's a tremendous prospect. He's a top 10 type kid in the nation. It's just Sark being diligent at the most important position in his eyes.
Hey, if DeCorian Moore and Keelon Russell turn Duncanville into a passing offense, you know that they're some quality football players. Justin,
Man.
one more guy that you were able to catch up with, someone from your neck of the woods. That's KJ Edwards out of Carthage. The 2026 running back picture is an interesting one. They've got Racine Guillory already committed. There are some fantastic running backs within the state of Texas, and Edwards is one of them. What did you hear about his conversations with Choice and his experience overall?
Yeah, KJ Edwards in Texas. That's a match made in heaven. I think if KJ was a senior, he would probably be committed to Texas right now. But he's in that 2026 class, and it is loaded in state. From Javion Osborne to Tredarian Ball to Racine Guillory, like you said, and then you've got to add in KJ Edwards. I think the Horns are in a great spot there. He's got 30-plus offers, guys. He's got trips to Georgia, Texas A&M's in the mix, Bama's throwing out a fishing line, and so I think it's a long way to go. But the biggest thing for him was keeping that relationship with Choice, because I think they get a little bit closer each time they talk. But really for him, it was meeting the former players. Like, he loved meeting Bijan Robinson. I mean, who wouldn't? I was fired up when I met him. Devin Duvernay, former guys. But you know who really he liked meeting was a fellow East Texan in Chris Boyd. And Chris got to talk to him. And basically, hey, I came from the same area you did, and this is the place that put me where it did. And Chris Boyd's going into his 5th season in the NFL this year, playing for the Houston Texans. And so for KJ, I think he got a little starstruck on this one. And I remember the last time a running back came to a spring game and got a little starstruck when he met Jamal Charles, and that was an Arizona native named Bijan Robinson.
Always good updates there. Coach, you got to talk to some guys, with an in-state guy and an out-of-state guy. We'll go with the in-state guy, and that, of course, is John Turntine. You have some notes from your talks with him up on Inside Texas, another great visit for him. And there's also some family connections between Turntine and at least the city of Austin that can play in the Longhorns' favor as well.
Yeah, definitely. John enjoyed his time at the spring game. Just seeing those guys compete, talking to Coach Flood again, it's just a great experience for him every time he said he visits Texas. He loves the facility, loves the atmosphere, loves the hospitality. It's just a great visit. But he had 2 sisters that go to Houston. Is it Tillotson that's down the street from UT? And then he has another sister who's actually going to be attending UT. So he's going to be on campus and in Austin a lot. And so to hear that, I think, hey, that's a great thing. If your family's here, you might as well come and join him. But we'll see what happens. But he enjoyed his time here. Just seeing those guys compete and seeing the offensive linemen finish blocks. He's like, man, there's some big nasties up front. But he liked what he saw.
Charlie, just real quick, Joe, our nickname, I think, for John Turntine is going to be Big Lottery, because that's what a lottery pick in basketball looks like. We can see the projection already. That's a top 10 national kid. I'm calling him Big Lottery.
One more guy that you caught up with is a tight end out of California named Kaleb Edwards.
Yeah.
The tight end picture for Texas is kind of an interesting one. What did you hear from your conversation with California? I think it's Sacramento area prospect.
Yeah, interviewing him, talking to him, the first thing he said was like he's always heard about Texas football, but actually being here, he's like, yo, these people take football serious, from the fans, the coaches, and the players, and that really stood out to him. He definitely said he'd be back to visit Texas. He loved what he saw. He speaks to Coach Banks regularly after coming by his school, and gave him an offer. I know he has some other visits set up to Alabama and Washington. He's been by Georgia, but yeah, he definitely want to make his way back to Austin and visit Texas. But he loved what he saw the involvement of the tight ends, just seeing guys like Jordan Washington go up and make a huge catch over the middle. He's like, yo, even Thatcher Milton making plays out there. He's like, yo, everybody's getting involved, but he loved it all. Everything he's been seeing. But yeah, he was excited about visiting Austin.
Justin, where does Edwards kind of fit into this whole tight end picture? Because they have Amari Winston committed. They're after Keoti Armstrong from Jasper. They're after Nick Townsend from Spring Decaney. And now you have Edwards visiting, and you're competing with Alabama, who's also in the Townsend picture. You're competing with Washington and even some other West Coast schools. So how do you see Edwards kind of fitting into this whole interesting tight end picture where they could want as many as 3?
Yeah, ideally, I think Texas would wants Townsend or Armstrong to join Winston. I think that's their ideal match. If they took 3, I wouldn't be surprised because I think the room needs it. But I think 2 is the bare minimum. I think they'll definitely get 2. I personally feel better about Keoti in Texas than I do Townsend. I think Townsend's been trending away from Austin for a little while. He's just found more interest in when he take trips to Alabama and Texas A&M, and just an absolute, great kid, great prospect. But Keoti Armstrong, I think Edwards is kind of a contingency there because Keoti wants to have that decision in July and August before he begins his senior year. And he's going to be in Texas and visiting Texas A&M for his official visits. I believe he's also got one to possibly Baylor, maybe even Auburn. They're in the mix. Miami's trying to get in there. But I think Texas and Keoti make more sense. If Texas and Keoti don't, wind up getting married, I think Kaleb Edwards is the next guy there. If you watch some of his tape, he's got some upside. He's got some athleticism, especially as when he flexes out. And so that's just Jeff Banks being thorough. They need to, if there's one position on the offense that they really need to gas up the depth chart, I think it's tight end. They haven't hit one big in the last couple seasons, even though Jordan Washington has immense upside. But I think it starts with Keoti. If that doesn't work, they're going to stay on Towns until the end of the cycle. And Kaleb Edwards, I think, would be the very next guy up on that list.
Jeff Banks always goes across the country for his tight ends. You see one in Georgia, and he's contacting one there in Sacramento. And, of course, he's got the big targets there in not too far from Houston in the Golden Triangle. So another great edition of Recruiting Intel. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 7,000 subscribers. We're almost there. And also head to InsideTexas.com. You can get 2 months of Inside Texas Plus access. That gets you through the official visit weekend, and you're going to want to stick around for all the intel coming from that. 2 months for $1. Use the promo code IT1. Justin, Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you for watching this episode, and we'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.